Welcome to episode 52 of our ComfyUI tutorial series. Today, I will talk about the free version of Flux Kontext, a model you can use on your computer with ComfyUI to generate images, edit them, replace or remove items, create consistent characters, and many other cool things. It is a model you should definitely have, and more importantly, you should learn how to use it properly. I will also show you some useful workflows I have been working on that you can get for free. First, you need to update ComfyUI to be able to use the new nodes. Go to the folder where you installed ComfyUI and look for the update folder. Here, run the bat file called update ComfyUI. Wait for installation to finish, and at the end, press any key to continue. After that, you can start ComfyUI normally, and you are ready for the next steps. I organized the workflows to be easier for you to work with. Even though some have similar workflows, I included the image inputs and the workflows with results so you can test and get the same results like I get in this video. All these are free to download from Discord. If you go to the workflow menu and choose open, you can open any JSON file you want with the workflow. Let's start with something simple. As we do with Flux, you can also generate images with Flux Kontext. Even though it's better at editing, I still prefer Flux for just image generation, but for editing, it's great. As you got used to it by now, all you need to run this workflow is in this note. So make sure you install all the models and nodes from here. For example, if it says to download the Flux model from here and place it in the diffusion models folder, you do just that. Click here, navigate to your ComfyUI folder, look for models, and place it in the diffusion models folder. That model will load here in the load diffusion model node. Then we need two models in the dual clip loader. They are the same we use with Flux, so you can use the same ones or the GGUF version if you want. And then the Flux VAE that you already have if you used Flux before. And if you want to upscale, you also need the upscale model. And of course, the custom nodes, which I try to keep to a minimum. I use Easy Use node for cleaning the video RAM and RG3 node for text labels, Loras, group muting, and so on. So make sure you go to Manager, search for Easy Use. Mine is already installed, but you should have an install button if it's not installed. Do the same for RG3 node and then restart ComfyUI. If you only downloaded the models, then it's enough to refresh the node definitions, assuming the download already finished. The workflow is the same as with the Flux model. I just added an extra upscaler at the end. So if we ignore this upscaler and the clear video memory node for now, it should look very familiar to you. We have the load diffusion model where we load the Flux Dev context model instead of the Flux Dev model. For the dual clip loader, it's identical to the Flux model. Just replace it with models that fit your video memory. There are some smaller ones that work on lower end video cards. We have the positive prompt, and for Flux conditioning, I saw that 2.5 is recommended instead of 3.5 like we usually have for Flux. Instead of adding a negative prompt with nothing in it, there's this conditioning 0 out node, which is basically set to ignore the negative prompt since it's not supported. We always need to set CFG to 1 to ignore the negative prompt. For steps, use 20, but you can experiment with those settings. I used a fixed seed so I can upscale it easily. And here is where we set the image size. Let's run the workflow. The image will be generated here, and I added a clean video RAM node at the end. You can delete or bypass it if you don't want to use it. Then after the image is generated, you can decide if you want to upscale it or not using this fast group mutter node. It's pretty easy to use, but it needs more video memory to upscale to a larger size. And this is the result. Not bad at all. It's not always great. Sometimes it can have a pixelated look on some images, especially when we're editing an image. The first run is always slower, so it took 36 seconds on my RTX 4090. Since I used a fixed seed, you need to change it manually or use a random one if you don't plan to use the upscaler. Let's say I add this number for the fixed seed and run the workflow again. I get a new image. If I toggle the bottom panel, you can see the second time is faster because it doesn't have to load the model. So it took only 18 seconds. Let's say you like the result and want to upscale the image. Click here, and then the image is resized and goes again through the K sampler to get a new version at double the size. You can play with the denoise values, from here if you want it more different or closer to the original. And this is the upscaled version, which usually looks better and is, of course, bigger. If you don't like the upscale, run it again and get it on a new upscaled version. You need to change the first K sampler seed if you want a new version of the original image. As you see, for the upscale, it took some time to make it bigger. If your video card doesn't have enough video memory, then you can replace these nodes with the GGUF version and load smaller models. I prefer to work with this one because for me it was faster, but if your card is smaller, you need to load smaller models to make it work. Here is an example with the GGUF version. So all my workflows have this load diffusion model for context, and if you use GGUF, you need to use this node instead, unet loader GGUF. And instead of dual clip loader, you replace it with the dual clip loader GGUF. So it's easy to replace in all the workflows I use in this video. You can download the GGUF version from here, but Q8 is pretty big. It's supposed to be better than the FP8 version, but I didn't see much of a difference. Maybe I didn't do enough tests. So for smaller video cards, go here and choose a smaller version. There are some that are even 4 gigabytes in size. Here is an alternative from a different user. The smaller the Q number is, the smaller the model size. So it works better on lower end video cards, but the generation is also less accurate. You can do the same for the clip models as well. There are smaller versions, but the lower you go, the more it will struggle to understand the prompt. And of course, you need this node installed from the manager called ComfyUI GGUF. It's also included in the note. So as I said, I will continue this video with the FP8 version because it's faster for me than the Q8 version, and I didn't want to use a lower quality model. The result for Q8 is very similar to FP8. With Q4, the quality can be a bit lower, but for some people it might be faster. For me, it took 10 seconds longer to load the Q8 model compared to FP8. If you made some changes to the workflows, you can save them before you close. Now let's move to the fun part, the image editing, which is what Flux Kontext is great at. Let's start with something simple. What's different about image editing is that we use an image reference. So we have this load image node where we can load an image. Sometimes your image might be too big or too small. So there's a new node we can use to adjust the size. So it works better with Flux Kontext. Let me show you in a new workflow what it does. We add the load image node, then we add the Flux Kontext image scale node, and we connect those. Then we need to either save or preview the result. So if the image is 1024, the result will also be 1024. But watch what happens when I choose a different image size and ratio. The original has this size, and when I run the workflow, the size is not the same. It's a little larger. Just something to keep in mind. If I take a big screenshot and paste it here, then run the workflow, you can see how big it was, and now it has the optimum size for Flux Kontext. So back to the workflow. First, we load the image we want to edit, like this cute cartoon bunny. Step 2 is to edit the prompt. You need to prompt in a certain way. For example, I said change the eye color, then I mentioned the subject, the bunny in this case, and then you can add more details. Don't use too many instructions on what to change, but you can give more details about how you want the final image to look, just like with the Flux model. So if I want to change the bunny, the background, and a lot of other things in the image, it's better to do it one at a time, then use the result, run it again, and make another change. What's also different in this workflow is the reference latent node. It takes the encoded image and uses it as a reference when generating the new image. Let's compare the before and after. So we had this cute bunny, and we changed the eyes to be red, like a vampire bunny. Everything else is pretty similar to the original, but keep in mind this works like ChatGPT. It generates a new image with the modified changes, so it's not identical, and only a small part is edited. I will show you how to do that more precisely later. You also need to check the prompting guides to understand better how it works. You can click here and see what Black Forest Labs recommends for prompting. Maximum tokens is 512, and ChatGPT said that's around 300 words. You can use simple prompts like change to daytime, but sometimes you want more control. In that case, you need to use words like while maintaining the same style or same pose and similar phrases so it knows what to keep. Also, for style transfer and transformation, You can add more detail so the prompt isn't too vague. There are a lot more examples there. You also have some examples in the Comfy documentation. If you adapt the workflows and do something different, you can edit these labels so they say what you want, or you can move them around. It's a label from the RG3 node. Let's move to the next workflow. I will upload the same bunny and show you what is different in this workflow. When the image is encoded in the previous workflow, it was going both to the reference latent and also to the K-sampler latent input. So we could only generate an image in a similar ratio and size to the original image. But if we add this empty latent node and connect it to the K-sampler, we can use different ratios and sizes, and we still have the reference image going to both the reference latent and K-sampler. So it's very useful. For example, if I say something like, this bunny is now in a winter setting in the snow, and I add maybe a sign with text on the left, I can control the size, and the result is this one. We get a similar bunny. It depends on your prompt and seed. Some seeds can look better than others, but in a few tries, you can get something close to what you need. But what if we want to combine two images into one? Since it only accepts one image, what do we do? In the first load image node, I upload the first image of this woman. Then we have a second load image node where I upload the bunny, and then we stitch the images together using this node. It's called image stitch. Make sure you use the one from Comfy Core, since other nodes might have a similar name. It takes both images, and depending on the direction you choose, it puts the images into one side by side. For example, if I run this workflow, you can see it places the first image on the left and the second image on the right. If I change the direction to down, for example, it will place the second image below instead of to the right like it was before. We also have space width and the color for that space. I can set the value for how big I want that space between the images. Let me reset them to default. In the prompt, I asked to place the woman and the bunny in the same scene, and I gave extra details on how I want it to look. It doesn't always work great, but sometimes it works quite nicely. I adjusted the size here using empty latent, because without that, you would get the combined width of both images. And the result is this one. Sometimes it can make the images a little darker if you don't mention how you want the lighting to be. But at least now we can combine images much more easily than before. Then once you get a version you like, you can upscale it. Let's move to the next one. It's all about transformations. You can use this workflow to transform your images into a different art style. For example, if I take this portrait of the woman and start the prompt with transform to a watercolor painting or oil painting or a drawing or whatever you need, and then include words like maintain original composition, pose, and facial features, you can get that portrait in a different art style. It's not perfectly identical, but I guess even an artist doesn't draw a face the same every time. If I open the original image and then open the watercolor painting, you can see it's a little different. Sometimes it makes the face more round compared to the original, or it might squash it vertically so the head doesn't look as tall or something like that. You can also transform an image into line art or a coloring book page. If I take this bunny image and again start the prompt with transform and describe what I want, it's usually pretty good at it. It doesn't know all art styles, but for that, you can probably find a Lora or train a Lora yourself. So if I run this workflow, I get this image. It's not perfect, but it looks quite good. With a little bit of Photoshop adjustment or using Adobe Illustrator, you can create a nice illustration way faster than doing it manually. If you don't like the result, remember the seed is fixed. You need to change the seed to generate again and get a different version. Upscale it for even more details. And of course, you can also try it in reverse. If you have a sketch or a line art illustration, like I have this line art of the gnome, you can prompt for how you want the style and colors to look. And the result is this gnome, which looks pretty cool and is very similar to the line art I gave it. So for some things, Flux Kontext is really amazing. For other things, it's not quite there yet, but with a little extra training from the community, maybe we can get it to be perfect. Let's try style reference or style transfer. The way I do it is to upload an image in the art style I want, like this house in anime art style. And then in the prompt, I say to use this art style and create a new image with the subject I want. So if I run it, I should get a similar style if Flux Kontext knows that style. And as you can see, after it's encoded, it goes to both the reference latent and the K sampler. So the size you see here is the final image size for this one. And the result is this one, which looks pretty similar in style to me. If I want to generate the image in a different ratio than the reference image, then I use this custom size workflow where I have the empty latent and I set the size I want. So I can do a castle in a landscape ratio and still keep a similar style to the reference image. And the result is this one. Like I said before, sometimes the image is not very clear, but usually after upscaling, it can fix small mistakes, or you can try a different seed to see if you get a better version. Let's move to the next chapter. I called it branding. Let me show you what it does. I can upload the pixaroma avatar or logo in the load image node. This was made in 3D before we had any good AI models, like a few years back. Then I prompted to use that logo and create something with it. Be creative and place that logo on all kinds of products. If I run the workflow, I should get a perfume bottle. Even though the logo has some lines and textures, let's hope it doesn't affect the quality too much. And the result is this one. It looks pretty good and similar to my logo, so I could probably get away with it. Not sure how it will work with more complex logos. Let's try something else. This time, instead of using the logo, I will use a product, like this perfume bottle. So maybe you can take a photo of your product and then prompt it to place it in a different environment. I used ChatGPT to help write a longer prompt to explain better that I want a flower in front of the bottle and some reflections as well. And look at this result. How cool is that? Again, it seems like it squeezed the bottle a little on the vertical, so the logo looks a bit wider. So depending on the product, if it has labels with small text, this method might not work how you expect since it recreates a new image, but you can try this in painting workflow instead. For example, I can add a product here. I use this one with a white background to show the kind of problems you might face, but you can try different backgrounds. Sometimes it works better as long as the subject is clear. Then I use this node to remove the background. And after that, the mask is converted to an image, so I can use it in the Inpaint crop node. As you can see, I connected it here. I talk more about Inpainting in episode 42. A useful setting to play with might be this blending pixels value. I prompted it to replace the background with a yellow studio background. What this does is take the masked version of the product and then stitch it back onto the generation. Basically, it generates a normal image with the model, and on top of it, it places the original product. So you keep the original product. If we look at the result, it's actually our product on top, and behind it, there is another bottle, similar in size, with a yellow background. Depending on how your product looks and how the mask is done, you might see a bit of a contour around it. You can try putting 0 on blending, but then you need a clean mask to work with. If I test it now, the mask might look clean, but it's not perfect on the edges. If we look at the result, it's not perfect, and that's why I used a different value for blending pixels. Also, to help with the generation, if you took the photo of your product on a white background, it might blend better on a new background that's light or a similar color. So I could use snow in the morning maybe, so the reflection from the white background on the bottle matches the snow reflection better. And the result is this one. See, it looks pretty believable, but you should play with the settings and the mask depending on your product. There must be a way to improve this. I already spent 3 days on this tutorial, so if you find a better way, let me know on Discord. If I try to prompt for something dark, for example, and my product was on white, you will see it doesn't blend so well anymore. Also, don't use images that are too big, since this inpaints the entire background, not just a small portion. So keep it around these sizes so it's not too large. Moving to the next chapter where we can replace and change things, let me show you how I changed the hair color. I uploaded this portrait and asked to change the hair of the woman from purple to natural red while maintaining facial features and so on. If we compare it with the original, it looks pretty similar. I also asked for smooth, clear skin on the face. As you can see, it looks smooth now because in the original, she had some freckles. Let me show you what happened before I used that part for skin smoothing. If I remove the part that cleaned the skin and run the workflow, look what happens. It accentuated those freckles instead of keeping them subtle. And if I run the upscaler like this, it will exaggerate them even more and make it look worse. So it can mess up the face sometimes depending on the original image. If I open both images, you can see there's a small difference. It changed the t-shirt and the background a bit. Just something to keep in mind. It creates a new image each time. It doesn't only edit one portion. If I try this workflow now, instead of changing the hair color, I can change the hairstyle. Maybe I want a blunt bob with bangs, and it looks pretty similar. Probably even with Lora training, you won't get something better than that. So for a single image, it's not a bad result. We can also change all kinds of colors. For example, I have this oil painting. I want to change the color of the red feather to purple. One thing to keep in mind is that the original image is adjusted with this node. So if you want to keep the image size similar to the original, you might want to bypass this node. It made the image an optimal size, but it's slightly different from the original. Try bypassing that node if the image is not too big and see if you get better results. And the result is this one, where it changed the color exactly how I asked. But let me also show you what I think is really impressive. I'm uploading this 3D render text that says welcome. It's at an angle and has text, so for most AI models, that's difficult to handle. I use this prompt, change the welcome text to pixaroma text, and look what happened when I ran it. How crazy is that? I was really surprised it managed to keep the style, change the reflection, and the text was accurate too. That doesn't mean text is always accurate, but in this case it was. You can also change weather conditions and lighting. For example, I have this building image and I want it to look identical, but in winter with a purple sunset and a snowman. So I added a lot of information in the prompt. And the result is this one. Pretty impressive, not perfect, but way better than anything I tested for free so far. But what if we want to change an entire character? For example, I want to replace this bunny with a panda and keep the same art style. The result is this one. It kind of kept the background too, but the ability to generate a panda in a style so close to the bunny is pretty impressive. Flux Kontext is also very good at background replacement. Testing on the same bunny, I want to replace the background with a winter landscape, but keep the bunny intact. Same pose and scale, just a different environment. And the result is this one. I think this was the only time when I got almost perfect consistency. If we open those two images, before and after, look how well it replaced the background and kept the bunny in the same position and size. I wish it would work as well for other things too. Let's try some character consistency. For example, if I upload this portrait of the woman, I can prompt for that woman to wear different clothes, change the camera angle, maybe add a necklace, and have her standing on the street. The result is way better than what I got with the ChatGPT image model. The face is similar, again, not identical, but it's the same with Lora training. You need a few tries to get it just right. Let's see what happens if I place her in a different environment with different clothes. And look at that. Now she's in winter, getting cold because of that thin shirt. Time to test how good it is at removing things, since until now we didn't have anything as good as Photoshop. Let me open this workflow and I'll use the woman with the green necklace to see if I can remove it. A simple prompt that starts with remove and details about what to remove. In this case, I want to remove the green necklace. And look at this result. It removed the necklace. Now there's a small problem. It removed the necklace, but it also changed the image. If I compare it with the original, you can see it's different. So it does the same thing as ChatGPT. It regenerates the entire image and it's not always perfect. So is there any solution for this? One of the legends asked me if Inpainting works for that. So I decided to give it a try. For every workflow with Inpainting, I think I forgot to mention, you need this node installed from the manager. So I'm uploading the same image with the necklace. Then if you read the instruction here, you need to right-click on the photo and open it in the mask editor. You can adjust the thickness of the brush and paint over the necklace. Make it a little bigger than the necklace because we blur that mask around and it doesn't have to be precise. So maybe something like this will work. Then I save it. After that, I use the same prompt, remove the necklace, and describe it. And now when I run it, only that area will be enlarged and it removes the necklace. Then paste that section back into the original image without the necklace. What you need to keep in mind is that in the final image, only the necklace area you masked will be affected, not the rest of the image, like in the previous workflow. Look at the before and after. It removed the necklace really well. I like it a lot. So removing with Inpaint seems to be a better way than removing with the model alone. Since Inpainting is so good, let's see what else we can do with it. I'm testing again on this portrait of the woman. I open it in the mask editor and I make a mask on top of the head. Then I ask to add a silver tiara on the woman's head. Let's test it. And look at that, it works great. If I open the image and compare it with the original, it's identical except for the top part. So it's really useful. Now let's move to the last category, using Loras, because some Loras have already started to appear on Civit AI for it, and probably more will show up in the next few days. I will use this perfume bottle to test it. I added here, we had a Power Lora loader that lets you load one or more Loras. Check episode 17 for more about how to use it. And here is a note for trigger words so you don't forget them when you prompt. You can download the Lora from here and place it in the Loras folder, then refresh ComfyUI. More info about the Lora is here. It's called Glass Prism Lora. If you want more, click on Models, then go to Filters and filter them by Lora. For the base model, use Flux Kontext, since the Flux Loras are different from the Flux Kontext Loras. Here you can find the Glass Prism Lora that I'll use in the video. Let's say I click on another one, like this mech anything. You can see the trigger words you need to add in your prompt. Make sure it's a Lora type and that it's based on the Flux Kontext model. You can download it from here. Now let's test the Prism Lora. You can select it from here and adjust the strength if needed. I added the trigger words here, plus a black background at the end, and now it should convert that bottle into a prism style object. And look at that, it's pretty good at it. So with Lora, you can do more than what the base model was trained for. Someone asked on Discord if 3 characters can be combined. So if I open again this workflow that I showed at the beginning, the one that lets you combine 2 images, you can use it to add an extra image too. The first image is the woman. The second image is the bunny. If I hold the Alt key, I can drag a copy of that. So on this load image node, I can upload an anime girl maybe. Now we have 3 different characters. But if I try to drag it there, it only has space for 2 images. So I will just copy that image stitch node again. The result of those 2 images, I link to the first input, and now the third image will be linked to the second input. I can add the preview here to see how all 3 images look combined into one image. From here, I can bring it up and combine them in that scale node. We only need a prompt. So I place all 3 characters in the same scene and maybe add at the end that they all hug or something. For the size, maybe I use something landscape so it has enough space to fit all 3 characters. Let's run it. You can see in the preview, it stitched all 3 images, and the result is this one. I'm surprised it knows how to combine 3 different characters and 3 different art styles. If your video card is not good enough, you can also run ComfyUI in the cloud. You can learn more about this in episode 35. They added context models and also a bigger video card option for certain subscriptions. If you want to run it, you can use the link from the video description to access my workflow. Just click Launch on Cloud and wait for it to load. On the left, I included some resources like the prompting guide to help you learn more. All you need to do is load an image. Then, for the second step, you add a prompt with what you want to change or replace. Let's say I want to make the eyes blue. Right now the eyes are brown, and I want them glowing blue, maybe with more of a vampire mood. To run it, use this button. It will run on an RTX 4090 video card, and for Plus members, there is access to a 48 gigabytes card. Let's run it normally. On the right, it will show how it starts to generate. In less than a minute, I have the bunny with glowing blue eyes like I asked. It took 55 seconds and the bunny looks pretty good. If you want a different ratio or size, add this empty SD3 latent node, or you can upload one of my other workflows. If I add this node and change the color, it's just like in the previous workflows I showed on local ComfyUI. I can link it to the latent image input. Now I can make it landscape if I want. Let's run it to see if it works. By the way, when you hover over an image, you have options to download, delete, or share it. The second image finished. It also took 55 seconds. It's in a landscape ratio. If I want to make it bigger, I can enable the upscaler. Let's run it again with the upscaler selected. It will continue from where it left off. Remember, it's a fixed seed, so it doesn't generate the image again. If you want a different version, change the seed on the first K sampler. The upscaler used 17 coins for this image. The final result is quite big and very clear. That is all for today. I want to thank you all for your support. In a few hours, I will hit another milestone on this channel, 50,000 subscribers. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to everyone who supports this channel, whether through memberships, likes, or comments. It really helps me keep making more tutorials for you. Remember to download the workflows from Discord. They are free. And if you have time, leave a comment and a like to help with the algorithm. Have a great day.